Welcome to another podcast of all things football. I'm Jay Jackford, and as usual, we have Lee Allenson with us. How we doing, Lee?
Very well, mate. Yourself?
Not too bad. You getting tired yet of all this cycling around Connecticut?
Well, I'm getting tired of getting told off by a 5-year-old, mate, to be honest with you. And like it's my fault when she falls off her bike, and my fault when we go down a hill, and my fault when we go up a hill. It's hard work, but she's doing great, mate. So I can't really complain.
Get out. Sorry, it's my dog there. He's now leaving.
Your missus was moaning at you, Jay.
Full time, that is. So who we got today on the show?
Well, it's a good one for me. I think it's great for young players to have a listen of this player's career and where it is and where he is now and what he does now. He's had some troubles in his past, but very good player. I come across him when I was playing for Biggleswade against Dunstable. Was far too good for the level. But I just remember him absolutely launching me up the line when I made a pass. I was absolutely fuming at the time because I liked him as a lad as well, and I was fuming. It was a naughty tackle. But a great lad, and I'd like to introduce Scotty Davies. Scotty, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No, don't be silly, mate. No problem at all. But now, listen, mate, just want to find out a bit more about you, where your career started. But firstly, where you fell in love with football, mate. How did that all start? How old was you? And where did it all kick off?
To be fair, my dad was not a bad player himself. It's one of those ones, where you sat in a pub when you're sort of old and you say, I could have made it, I could have done this, I could have done that. And it seems to be that my dad never says it, but everyone else does, saying how good he was. So he played Conference South for about 20 years. So from the age of sort of 3 or 4 years old, I go watch him at Aylesbury United with my granddad. And I just got the bug for it. Got to like 6 or 7 and I was getting a couple of pounds for cleaning the players' boots and things like that, being mascot. Like you see the kids now booting the ball around on non-league pitches for the game. It doesn't really happen as much. But back in the day, my Saturdays just lived for football training in the morning at my local club, which was Bedgrove Dynamos, and then going to watch my old man play. But he's actually got the worst disciplinary record in non-league football. He's got 27 red cards in his career. So,
where did he play then, Scotty? Where was he? Because I bet I come across him years ago when my dad was manager at clubs.
Yeah, you would have. So he was at Aylesbury United, Harrowborough, Chesham, Marlow when they were all like decent. And then I got banned from going to watch him play in the end because he was getting so many red cards and he punched someone one week that my mum was like, listen, you're not going again. So he ruined it for me. And I remember he had Haybridge Swifts away on a Tuesday night, and being from Buckinghamshire, it's a good slap, that. Yeah. And I was crying my eyes out that I wasn't allowed to go. But yeah, it was my life. I loved going to watch my old man play. So it's good.
You've just given me an absolute flashback of the last game of football I ever played in a league game. I got a phone call on a Saturday afternoon. Stevenage weren't playing, and they went, "Can you come and do us a favour?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I can." Thinking I still had it, and I was a striker. You wouldn't believe that, Lee. And anyway, I got in the change rooms. They're like, "Yeah, you're playing centre half." So I took my lad down with me. He was 5 years old. First time he'd ever seen me play football. And I got my only ever red card I've ever had. Absolutely chopped some geezer down. I had no idea.
It happened to me as well. I remember when I started my under little 15 side, they were good side, but I had this centre half and he was a lunatic. He was that bad that we had a fight. He had a fight in one game and one of the dads ran on to stop him and he actually threw the dad on the floor and dislocated his shoulder. Right? So I said to him, look, you need to come and watch our level and see what it's about. Like, you can't be fighting. And we played Truro on a Tuesday night for Biggleswade. And that was a slap for them, by the way. And I scored. I took a corner straight in, scored. It was going really well. And I rolled the ball to Nat Peacock. And he didn't hold it up. And it's one of them got into him about holding the ball up. And the next thing, all I remember is we're having a stand-up fight on the pitch. The manager's dragged me, Nunny at the time, and he's dragged me and I've absolutely abused him. I've walked around the stadium, abused the supporters, abused the chairman. I thought that was me done, but luckily he had me back. But yeah, you do, you lose. It's football, isn't it? You can't help how it is.
That's the thing though. Like my old man, I was talking to him about his career and he'd go, what about that time I got a red card? Not when I stuck one in the top corner or anything like that. he'll talk about the punch on the far side of the pitch or something. And I'm thinking, if that's how you judge your career, then there's something wrong. But yeah, it's part and parcel of the game, I guess. We all remember our first red, don't we? That's the problem.
Of course you do. What where did it start with the pro clubs, mate? And how early was that?
I was quite fortunate, to be fair. I was playing in a team where we won absolutely everything. Like a lot of ex-pros, when you're kids, you play in teams that are successful. And there was me and 4 of my mates that went to Watford. And the place where we actually used to train, it shut down because of finances. So it was like an Aylesbury satellite centre. Yeah. And in the end, Wycombe took it over, and they said you can come on trial at Watford, but you have to travel over there, or Wycombe are going to take over and you can stay at Wycombe. And they tried to get me to go to Watford, but wanting to stay with my mates. So I stayed there, and I was there for the next sort of like 4 years, like playing till the age of under 14s at Wycombe. Then I moved on to Reading after that.
So how did that come about? You moved to Reading?
Oh, Christ. So I was quite fortunate again that I had a pick of clubs, but it's like I say, when I was in the team with 5 of my mates from my local Sunday side, I was quite reluctant to leave. So I had like Chelsea and Villa and teams like that, but it was just too far as a young kid. So when I was at Wycombe to the age of under 14, my manager actually got a job, Nas Bashir. You'd have come across him, I'm sure, at some point, Lee.
I remember him, mate, yeah.
Yeah, so Nas actually got a job like assistant academy manager at Reading. And he said to me, listen, I want to take you. It's as simple as that. And I was quite reluctant. And I thought, you know what? I'm with my mates yet again. It's a bit further to travel. But they couldn't come and watch me play for Wycombe. There was some sort of like legality which they couldn't come and watch me play and sort of tap me up. So they actually came to watch me play for my school. And we won 15-0. So, yeah, they came to watch me after that. And then I went on trial for a few months and they paid about 50 grand for me in the end. So 14 years old, I thought I was like a wonder kid and I thought it was going to last forever. But obviously we'll get on to that later on.
That's a lot of dough, isn't it?
That's a lot of money, isn't it? I mean, I've got that at the moment. My nephew's at Arsenal and he's under 15s now and he's been there since he was 7 or 8. And he's got obviously 16s next year, then finds out he's got a YT. If they give him a scholarship, should I say, if they give him that, I think clubs have got to pay like 250 grand for him now. It's just crazy money, isn't it?
Yeah, because they don't invest anything other than an hour a week in training and a game. So it was either agree a fee or go to a tribunal. And in the end, there was a fee agreed. It was quite clear that I didn't want to stay there, but Reading kind of nicked Wycombe's all best young players. So they nicked Simon Church, Alex McCarthy, myself, Nathan Tyson as well, I do believe, left. So there was 4 or 5 players they were just nitpicking. Just nicking. And yeah, it's like you say, it's on the cheap. I think when you look back at it, I was there till the age of 23, so it wasn't the worst investment for 50 grand, but it could have been a lot better, as I'll probably mention later on again.
Yeah. What's that like going from Wycombe then to Reading for money at 14? That's got to be a lot to, if you look back now, it's probably a lot to take on board. And like you say, you're probably walking around school like you're the top dog.
Do you know what? Yeah, so a lad that I actually went to school with played for Wycombe with me. And I said to my dad, listen, I don't want to go over there by myself. So he actually spoke to Nas, and I feel bad saying this. He spoke to him and said, listen, can Gianni come over? This Italian lad that was decent at Wycombe. And he was like, yeah. He said, but we're not going to sign both of them. It's as simple as that. He said, but you can come training. So we went training, and then the night that I knew I was going to get signed, my dad was about to take me to the session. And I got a last-minute phone call and said, listen, you've got to get Gianni's dad to take you. And I said, why? He said, well, they're going to tell him tonight that he's not getting anything. And they're going to tell you over the phone tomorrow when you're not with him that you're going to get signed, because they didn't want us in both in the car traveling home together, one disappointed and one happy.
Yeah.
So it's understandable looking at it that way, but at the same time, it's still quite tough. It's quite brutal when you look back at it. So I remember going, oh, no, I didn't get anything. It'll probably be the same for you. And I'm thinking, well, I know I'm getting a contract tomorrow. Oh. So, it was hard to take. If he's listening or he listens to this, it'll be the first time he's ever heard it. But it's, yeah, sorry, Gianni, if you're listening. Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't speak to him that much anymore. But that's how brutal it was. But for me, the step up was absolutely incredible. So you're going playing from sort of Gillingham and Colchester, then you're playing Arsenal and West Ham, teams like that. Mark Noble, I still say to this day at West Ham, when I was under 15, is the best player I've ever played against. Purely because I think we lost 4-1. He scored a hat-trick and set the other one up. And someone like him, he's probably played, the best part of 400 Premier League games. Yeah. And I can see why. A lot of people would think that he's just a basic, bang average player. But he was way above anyone that I've seen as a kid.
That annoys me, though, Scotty, don't it you? Like when they say like basic, and he's played 300, like drives me. I think it's I find it difficult. I mean, listen, there's a lot of average footballers out there, don't get me wrong. But when you see someone who's played Premier League and that, I can't see how you can criticise people. It drives me insane. Like, He played
honestly,
300 games.
him and Chris Cohen were centre midfield. He went on to play for like Forest and that. And I remember my dad just saying after the game when we got absolutely hammered, he's like, listen, that's the level you've got to get to. And I thought it was absolutely miles away. I was thinking, how are we ever going to get to that level? But yeah, it was just different class. But for me, I had stress fractures in my back. So I was out for almost a year, sort of between 14 and 15.
Yeah.
And I had obviously the pressure of having the price tag on my head in terms of what they paid for me. And I didn't have a scholarship agreed.
Right.
So I remember them sort of leaving me till last because of the injury. Then we had a lad called Bjarni Vidarsson, who was an Icelandic international at the age of sort of 17, and he was like a wonder kid. And they said, we can't split the two of you. And you won't believe this. Like I said it to so many people, and it's like, surely not. They said, we can't split you. So what we're going to do is basically do a bleep test. And I remember turning up to this hockey pitch in Reading on like a Thursday night. And they said, right, this is what we're going to do. And I stood there on the line waiting to run. And I'm thinking, like, I'm fit. Like I was really fit back then, believe it or not. But this lad, he's like built like a high jumper or something. He's got long legs and everything. So I thought to myself, what am I going to do here? I've just got to run for my life. So we stood on the line, and the speakers broke. And in the end, they actually went with me. They said, listen, the speaker's broke. It's not working, blah, blah. Over the next week or two, they told me they were going to sign me. And I just thought, do you know what? It would have been an absolute travesty for them to sign a kid from Iceland rather than a lad that's 45 minutes down the road. Yeah. But I feel like they made the right decision in the end. But that just shows, like, I don't know what was going through their minds, but I'll never forget it. Going to sleep early the night before and that, but it's just crazy.
For the biggest race of your life.
Oh, mate, unbelievable. But fortunately, the speakers broke, so it's probably got me a career for a few years. The speakers.
Do you know what how the other lad went on in his career? Did he end up playing anywhere?
Yeah, he actually went and signed a scholarship at Everton. So yeah, I wish the bleep test had worked. I might have been there in the end. But yeah, he done all right. I think he played for like Iceland under 21s, and he was in the first team squad at some point. But I don't really know what happened to him after that. I'll Google him in a minute. Yeah.
Just so obviously you get the scholarship.
Yeah.
And then when did you get? A lot of players we spoke to, Jad would say this as well, that a lot of them knew sort of in the first year going into the second year their scholarship they were getting a pro. What was yours like? How did that come about?
So I moved into Diggs in Reading with Big Curtis Ujar. Me and him were living together, so you'd have come across him.
I love Kurt.
The woman fell pregnant, and she'd already had a little girl, so she only had room for one of us.
It's not yours or Curtis's though, is it?
No. It definitely wasn't. It definitely wasn't ours, mate. Definitely wasn't ours. But one of us had to get kicked out because
did you have to do a bleep test?
Oh, mate, I'd have battered him in that. But one of us had to get kicked out because there wasn't enough room. And he used to eat her out of house and home. He's the hungriest guy you've ever met in your life. So I remember one day her sort of sitting him down saying, this is a situation, like, you're going to have to leave. And I just said, like, I would sit there eating my dinner. He'd finish his and he'd just be staring at me while I've got a bit of mine left. And he'd look at me and he'd just say, are you going to eat that? And I'm like, yeah, just let me finish it. Just give me 5 minutes. But yeah, we moved into Diggs together and it was absolute class. But during my first sort of like year of my scholarship, I was top scorer in that in the youth team, which was good from midfield. I was captain a lot of the time. But for me, it wasn't on the pitch that was a struggle. It was off the pitch and my attitude.
Yeah.
Eamon Dolan came in as youth team manager. I did have Brendan Rodgers for the first 3 months. And then he sat us down and he said, listen, boys, I've been offered a job at Chelsea by Mourinho. And we were like, Jesus Christ, like, you can't say no to that. So he packed his bags and left. Eamon came in. And after a month or two, I knew that I was struggling. He basically said to me, listen, you're the most difficult player I've ever had to manage. He said, you're so giddy in terms of your attitude. You don't listen. You don't take things on board. And the problem I had is that people, the first team manager said to me, listen, Scott, he said, you've learned to run before you can walk. You can do all the difficult things, but you can't see a 5-yard pass. Yeah. And I'd been told this for years. Like, my old man had been saying to me, like, I know you can ping a ball and you can strike it from outside the box, but I couldn't do the easy things. So I wasn't guaranteed to get one until the day I got the phone call on a Friday morning. And they said, listen, we're going to give you a pro contract. So that night, I remember ringing up all my mates. I said, listen, we're going out, night on me. And I thought this pro contract was going to be like an absolute hefty contract. So I'd gone from 55 quid a week to 150. I've promised them to pay for the night out. remember being in a snooker bar in Wickham thinking, well, that's me run out of money then. Like, I've got nothing left. I've only paid for a game of pool. But yeah, it was similar to Dom the other day with the third year scholar. It was pretty much that. But I was playing in the reserves at sort of 16, 17, which was absolute eye-opener. A player like Don Hutchinson, remember him?
Yeah.
Played against him in midfield one day against Millwall, and he was unbelievable. Yet again, I just thought to myself, when you get those old, like past it pros in inverted commas, they've still got so much more ability than a young lad coming through. Yeah. And I think that's why now I don't mind playing against young kids at times. Yeah. I think you can not bully them because I'm not that physical, but it's just a completely different game.
I remember playing against Matt Spring when he was at Watford. Like he was another level. He was a joke. And a bit like you, the older I got, the easier I found playing against the young whippersnappers to playing against like players like yourself and other players like that who'd been there and a little bit older and more experienced. I always found that more difficult. It's just that experience that they've got in it. They just see the game a little bit different, and the youngsters just run around like headless chicken at the time.
Yeah, it's as I say. I think my youth team days, I was a bit reckless. Like, I've written some notes here just so I can like cover it all because there's so much that went on. But even little things like what comes before footballer is professional, and I wasn't that. A lot of the time I wasn't. We got done for shooting players with BB guns at the training ground. We went on a tour to Leon, and Eamon Dolan brought me to the side and he said, "Listen, this is Alex McCarthy. He's joined us from Wickham. He's coming on trial with us." So I was like, "Okay." And Alex McCarthy back then was a nobody. He was just a young lad. And he said, "Right, you can go out tonight, boys, but no drinking. Make sure you're back by 10. So we've gone out in Leon. And me and Ben Hamer, one of the other keepers who's at Derby now, we got absolutely battered. We were steaming. We've come back to the hotel. And you know that spoon game where you whack the spoon in your mouth and you do that one? So I've never seen it before. This was, 13 years ago. So I've come in and Eamon's obviously clocked on that I'm drunk and he sat me down. He said, "Right, go on, sit there." He said, "We're going to play the spoon game." So I was like, "Yeah, go on then. I'll have a go at that." So next thing, my mouth is absolutely covered in blood. And he said, "That'll serve you right for drinking." And I was like, "Oh, fucking, he's done me, ain't you?" Like, do you know what I mean? So it's little things like that where I just did what I wanted. Got done for bullying and all sorts, but it wasn't bullying. It was just verbal banter that just didn't go down well.
I've got one for you. And I was probably very, very similar. I grew up in a changing room from 3 years of age with my dad and watching his teams and being around the older generation. I have the same with my nephew now. Like, he's a nightmare. Some of the stuff he gets away with at school is out of control. And I was telling like the word, like the rudest jokes at like 10 years of age to the teacher at school. And do you think for you it's because of that environment you grew up in, your dad being a footballer himself and things like that? Do you think that's why you was like you was as you got a little bit older as a teenager?
Yeah, like I'm not saying I was complete and utter lad or anything like that, but I just loved banter. I loved being around it, and I'd see my dad's mates on the team bus and they'd be absolutely tearing shreds out of each other. In the change rooms after the game, sometimes you'd see like some of the players sniffing gear and things like that, and you think to yourself, like, what is going on? And I never got involved in any of that, but I was just around lads from a young age, and I absolutely loved it. So it was like picking on people's insecurities, even though I'm ginger and big teeth and stuff like that. I'd find faults in anyone. So yeah, I got done for. I had someone's parents come into the training ground one day, and the manager pulled me into the office, and I'm thinking, why am I in here with someone else's parents? Like, have they got the wrong player? And next thing, like, they sat me down and they said, "Listen, you've been saying some things to our son. He's come home. He's told us about it." And they basically said, "Is it true?" And I was just like, "Well, kind of, yeah." And he said, "It's either true or it's not." But yeah, just silly little things that I could pick up on. But I thought it was banter, but at the time, it's like you say, everyone's different, aren't they? No one's got that exterior, that shield that can just protect them from everything, I suppose. But
if you were going to go back to those times, knowing what you know now, would you have changed it? Would you still be that person, do you think?
I don't think I could have changed. I was friends in the youth team with the lads that were a year older rather than my age, and the ones that are a year younger. And the ones that came in a year younger had Eamon Dolan as manager from the beginning, and he had them like robots. They were unbelievable professionals. And if I name them to you now, you'd be like, Jesus Christ! All in one year group, you had like Simon Church play for Wales, Hal Robson-Kanu, Gylfi Sigurdsson, Jem Karajan, James Henry, Alex Pearce. They've all played 100 plus games in the Championship, Premier League. So I was in that sort of I was lost. I was like a little lost puppy because I belonged to no one. I had a new manager that came in, and then I went out on loan for 2 years at the age of sort of 18. So when I came back, I had no mates. And it wasn't because I was a weirdo and I distanced myself, but I just didn't know where to fit in.
Yeah.
And that tight group, that little clique, you couldn't break it, like the one that they had. But yeah, no, I'd like to think that I'd do things differently. But I always believed that my ability would get me away or get me through it.
Yeah.
And it did for a long, long time. Like, don't get me wrong. But to have that attitude of, listen, I'm going to be here in the morning, first thing, beer in the afternoon. You've either got it or you haven't. It's hard to actually instill that in someone. I do believe that's just my opinion. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
People can try and change, but yeah, I was probably wanting to be everyone's mate and be accepted rather than be the teacher's pet, I suppose.
So you were at Reading for quite a number of years, didn't you? But you ended up going on loan to, I think it's about 6 or maybe 7 clubs. How was that? And what was the Aldershot in particular like for the two loans?
So this is another one. I walked in on a Monday morning. This is how the loan came about. I walked in with a broken jaw. And the manager sat me down and he said, listen, he said, like, what is going on? And I said, got punched at the weekend. My jaw's broken. Can't train for 8 weeks. And he just said to me, listen, you've got 1 year left on your contract. I've had enough of you. And I was like, okay, fine. He said, you're going to go out on loan. So I was just like, right, where am I going to? You think I'm going to go to like a championship club or something? he sat me down and he said, whoever rings up, he said, you're going on loan first. And I was like, okay. So I actually played one of the games towards the end of the season, and they told me it was a Barclays Premier League Reserve Cup final, and we played Bolton. And before the game, they said, "Listen, there's not going to be anything here for you next season. You've got a year left, and it's an option, but we're not going to take it up." So I was like, "Okay." He said, "So go out there tonight and do yourself justice." So I remember playing the game and I got man of the match. And in the bar after the game, Watford and Palace offered me a deal, and I thought to myself, "This is class. I've got a club straight away." Reading, I then went away on international duty that night, and Reading rang me the following day and said, listen, we're going to take you up on that offer. And I thought, oh, cheers, thanks. Like, I've obviously had one good game and they've changed their mind. But got back to pre-season and he said, you're going to go out on loan. And I remember Aldershot Town ringing me and I thought, what are they doing ringing me? Like, there's no way I'm going to the National League or the conference back then. And I remember driving there and I was absolutely gutted, rang my old man, told him I was going there. And I'll be honest with you, my ego told me that I was better than that level.
Yeah.
And because that's just where I was. I didn't mean it to come out that way or I didn't hope for it to be that way, but it just was. And I got there and it was the best year of my life. I absolutely loved it because you're around men for the first time in your life. You're playing games. It means something. You're trying to get the 3 points. We won the league by 15 points. Scored 11 goals in 24 games. And I met lads that were just as crazy as me. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm the youngest one here. And you know that young kid in the change room that you can always get to do something. He's like, you won't go and do that. And I was like, of course I will. So for me, we went to an away game and we went down to the shops on a Friday night. Went down to Asda when we were playing somewhere up north. I think it was Droylsden. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Yeah.
Oh mate, awful. There's a big Asda by Man City's ground. We went down there and we've walked in and the lads have shot off. And I was thinking, where have they gone? So I'm by myself. And I'm walking back, it's about 10 minutes. And as I'm walking out of Asda, there's a dog, like, on no lead. So I'm thinking to myself, fuck, come on then. So I've gone, come on, little man. So we've walked all the way back to the hotel. I've walked in past reception. The dog's walking on the floor in front of me and we're in the lift. I've gone up to the hotel and I've knocked on the door of my mate's room when we're all playing cards. He's opened the door and walked away. So the dog's followed me in and he's just sat at the end of the bed. So we're playing cards. Next thing I've gone, ruff. So the dog started barking and they're going, Scotty, what the fuck is that? What are you doing? What are you doing? So I said, I brought the dog back from Asda. I said, because you lot all left me. I said, I wanted someone to walk back with. So I don't know if you remember Nicky Ball.
Yeah,
Nicky Ball, yeah, he lost the plot and he said, mate, that's someone's fucking dog. He said, you've got to take that back. So I've had to walk back to Asda. There's a guy running around the car park trying to look for his dog. And I said, listen, mate, I found your dog down the road. I said, I've just brought it back. And he gave me 20 quid. I couldn't believe it. gave me 20 quid. I was reluctant to take it, but I thought to myself, do you know what? I'll put that into the card game later on. But it's just little things like that where I just wanted to enjoy football. But we'd stay awake till 3-4 o'clock in the morning playing cards. But like you say, that season, playing men's football, I would always say to any young player, do not sit around and waste time. Go out and play games, regardless of the level. Because I think that loan move probably gave me another 7 or 8 years in professional football.
Yeah. I think as well, like I said this to Junior yesterday, like some of these lads that are scholars and that, they're so reluctant to fall into non-league and that, but they don't realise how good it is.
Yeah.
They really don't. It's good.
The filter system now is crazy, mate, isn't it? Because you see some of these players that are playing in the Conference South and even the Southern Prem team and leagues like that. You look at them and you think, like 2 years ago, you were playing in a football league.
Yeah.
And they're good players. And you can learn so much from non-league football these days. I'll be honest with you, I've always respected non-league football because I've always respected my dad and I knew that he was a good footballer. So from the offset, I thought to myself, I know it's not bad. But it's like you say, playing for 3 points is the biggest thing that I think, because it ups every level in football, whether it's your physical attributes, your technical attributes. When you're playing 3 points, everything has to be raised. Yeah. These reserve games I used to play in back in the day on a Wednesday in front of 12 people. What do you learn from that? You've got half the team that are pros that aren't playing in the first team squad that don't want to be there. So for me, it's so important to get out and about and go and get playing games for sure.
So you've made obviously no secret about the gambling. When did that start to become a problem? We'll go into obviously your other moves at Crawley and Oxford and then falling into non-league. But when did you start to think like, I'm struggling a little bit here now? It was that early on, or
yes, yeah. So this was at Aldershot. It really took off. Like I remember sort of sitting down on my first ever away trip, and they were like, "Listen, do you want to play cards?" And I was like, "Yeah, too right I do." And my ego again told myself to tell them that I had a big contract, that I was on a lot of money. And I wasn't. I was on 400 quid a week. So I was probably the lowest paid player at Aldershot. And I played cards for the first time on my first ever trip. Lost £2,000, got my mum and dad to pay the deck, so I couldn't afford to pay it. It was on an IOU sheet. And straight away, the boys nicknamed me the cash machine. So it wasn't for obviously winning loads of money. It was like every time we got to the services, I'd have to go to the cash point and go and take money out. So I started playing probably just to fit in. To be honest, it was a way of mingling, getting to know players. And when you get to your hotel at some of these grounds and stuff, you think to yourself, "What? I'm going to sit here and watch Friday night TV," or you could be in one of the lads' rooms having a crack. Getting a takeaway ordered, whatever you do, room service, and then play cards till 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So that's what I did. But then I found myself going to the bookmakers after training with a few of the boys. And to be honest with you, I was losing my money within a day or two of getting paid. So my parents pretty much paid for me to get to training for 7 years. For the next 7 years, I didn't put any money in my tank because I couldn't afford to. Nights out were paid by my parents, all my bills. So we probably worked out they lent me about £60,000 over that period of time, which is a big sum of money. But yeah, it was just something that was just ingrained in the culture, I suppose, of being in non-league football at that time. I joined, I do believe, when it was starting to change. We had a few of the old school boys that were sort of 36, 37, the crazy sort of gang people. And then I was 19 at the time. So yeah, I reckon it sort of changed around my time. You would have had a few more years of it than me, I reckon.
I've not really got into the gambling myself, to be honest. My old man likes a bet, but Jay asked the question to Matty the other day, and Matty Everton was brilliant. He actually said, like, he was losing money, but he was playing the best football in his life. Like, I couldn't believe it. What was it like? I know what addiction's like. I'm a little bit crazy myself. I've got a few issues myself, but when things take over your life, was it literally you're waking up in the morning and you're thinking, I've got to go and have a bet? What you like when you're playing football, you're looking at your phone at half time thinking like, what is it coming? Or what was it like for you?
Yeah, you look forward to waking up, and that was only if you'd gone to sleep kind of thing. I couldn't put my phone down at night, so I'd be betting on world sports. I became like a massive basketball fan. I didn't have a clue about basketball, baseball. I was watching American sports at night because the English ones had finished. And I found myself like studying the New York Yankees, like form guide and stuff. And I'm thinking, what am I doing at 3 o'clock in the morning looking at this? But it just became a complete compulsion to just gamble. But the problem, what I had at first, I could get away with it because my football was going really well. And then I got a new contract at the end of the first season at Aldershot, and it gave me more money to go and gamble. So I went from like 400 quid a week to £2,000 a week. And straight away with my signing on fee and like that, I felt like a millionaire. I was like a Wolf of Wall Street. So, but I wasn't. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't earning massive money. But for me, I could have been on 100 quid a week or 10 grand a week. It would have made no difference. I'd have lost it all, because that's just the way that I was. But at times, half time, you're checking your accumulators and things like that, consistently just doing it. And you're kind of more worried about your accumulator coming in and winning a couple of grand off that than winning £60 for a win bonus in the conference.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's straight away what excites you more. The feeling of winning a football match was great, but winning a couple of grand on an accumulator, for me back then, it was one of the best feelings you could ever wish for.
Did you? It sounds a really stupid question to say, but did it feel like it was a problem? Were you bothered by it, or it was just part and parcel of what you were doing day in, day out?
I think because of my personality and that, I was always loud, I was boisterous. I didn't want anyone to know that I was struggling. So I'd put the brave face on, I'd bowl into the changing room, and I'd act like everything was okay. My parents knew it was a problem, I knew it was a problem. But the issue that I had is that when I was struggling at my worst at the beginning, I was then given a new contract. So it just enabled it to go on for even longer. I say, when I go around and tell my story now, being given a new contract was one of the worst things that could have ever happened to me. Because if I'd have been sort of stayed on relatively the same money, it may have sort of slowed down my gambling a bit. But it completely fast-tracked it. So I was betting a lot bigger amounts throughout the night, running out of money quickly. My respect for money went out the window completely. Even little things like going on nights out with my mates. And I'm trying to buy the bar with my winnings and stuff from the day. And it just became a life that I didn't enjoy, but I enjoyed it whilst I was in it. But as soon as reality hit home, when I got home and I woke up in the morning, I'd think, what have I done? Why have I done that? But I couldn't stop myself from then doing it again the following day. So
what was, we spoke to Matt, when we spoke to Matty Everington on it. He said, like, obviously going to Stoke and then parents stepping in and Tony Pulis helping and that. Did Reading know at the time what was going on? Because
no.
they'd go, if they could find out, they would have then helped you with your finances and what have you.
No, the first time that I ever had an issue with gambling and someone nearly finding out was with Brendan. So I'd started like the season in the Championship when I went back there, and he sat me down and he said, listen, you're the last one into training every day. He said, and you're the first one out. He said, I need you to be more professional. And I just couldn't be. I promised him that I would be. But I was rushing to get to the bookmakers every day. I had a date with the roulette machine. So I just thought to myself, right, okay, from tomorrow I'll be better. Exactly the same happened again. Saw me driving out the training ground. And he sat me down and he said, listen, you had one chance. He said, and you fluffed it. And I had an opportunity to tell him then that I was struggling. But to cough up to your manager and say, listen, I've got no money. I'm gambling too much. I'm struggling with mental health. But still pick me next Saturday when we're playing Barnsley away. It wasn't going to happen in my mind. So I decided to keep it to myself. And then from that day, I never played another match for Reading anyway, because he saw a change in attitude in me. I don't know if my performances had dropped, but I didn't want to tell him that I had an issue. I was ashamed of the person that I was. I was ashamed of what I was doing. And it's like you say, my ego probably didn't allow me to do that. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only chance. I've actually had a chat with Brian McDermott the other day, who took over from Brendan about 3 months into that season. And he said, Scott, I've seen your podcast on Twitter and that recently. He said, I just want to say it's absolutely brilliant. I haven't spoken to Brian for 10 years, right, since I've left. Yeah. And he just said it was absolutely brilliant. He said, I love what you're doing now. He said, I've just reflected back to a time that I was talking to you in the car park when I was considering putting you into the team and playing you again or whatever. And he said, I remember having a chat with you and you were just looking into the car park. He said, you were looking past me. You weren't looking at me. He said, I went and then spoke to Nigel Gibbs and said, he's just not there. He's just not there. He just doesn't get it. Yeah. And Ryan said, now it all makes sense. Because I was in the room but wasn't in the room kind of thing. Yeah, I was just in a bubble. I was in a complete and utter bubble.
Amazing, because I love it when people say like, just stop getting on. I've suffered with OCD my whole life. Like I had it severe when I was a kid. It used to take me 2 hours to go to bed. Madness. I'd think something was going to happen to the family, and the players laugh at me now. Do everyone's kit bag up before the game, like just an OCD thing I've got. But I've had it very, very bad. And I control it a little bit better now. But if someone's to say to me, just switch off and go to bed, I couldn't do it. Like, it's impossible. So for you to someone say, like, I'll just stop gambling, you just can't do it, can you? You just can't. I'll change tomorrow. It don't work.
No, do you know what, though? Brian actually said to me, he said, texted me the other day, and I've never actually realised how good a bloke he is, because I've never really spoke to him. Even though he's my manager, I never actually really spoke to him much. And he just texted me saying, do you know what? I wish I could have been there for you. And I sat on my sofa in there and I thought to myself, oh, like that actually hit me. It hit a nerve, or it hit an emotion. And I thought, do you know what a nice message that is to say. Because it's like you say, I kind of look back now and think, well, do you know what? If I'd have coughed up and owned up that I did have an issue, maybe I've read the situation wrong. But like you say, when you look at a manager as a young footballer, you see him on this pedestal, this like headmaster type that are unapproachable, don't you? Yeah. So you don't want to go and knock on their door and speak to them as you want to do that as little as you can. So that's what I tried to do. You knew that if you're going into the manager's office, it was for one reason or another, and most of the time it was going to be for a bad reason. So yeah, no, I got a lovely message from him the other day. We actually spent 40 minutes on the phone just talking, and that was the first time since I've left Reading that I've spoken to him. But it just shows, doesn't it, that they are human and they will help.
Yeah, of course.
And that's a massive problem. It's a part of sport, and unfortunately, the three of us being men. I mean, I suffered with depression for quite a long time, and I didn't really understand it until it was really bizarre. My wife was competing bodybuilding shows, and she stopped doing it. And then about a year later, she ended up having a breakdown, and it took her to have a breakdown and openly just straight away go, oh yeah, I've had this problem, and this is how I feel. For me to actually then start talking to her about how I feel, my depression and stuff like that. It's just amazing. But it's men, we're a pain, aren't we? We don't like talking about things, and we don't like doing that, which is great that three of us can actually openly talk about issues that you face day to day.
Do you know what? It's funny you say that. So I remember being with a girl at the time, and I knew that I was depressed. I knew I was down. I was struggling. I was crying myself to sleep, waking up in the morning, just hated doing what I was doing, I suppose. And then one day, she opened up to me saying that she was anxious and she was feeling depressed and low. And I got so scared that there was going to be two of us in the same boat that I didn't say anything. I just finished it, knocked it on the head and went. Because I thought to myself, do you know what? We're not going to be any good for each other. Because I thought to myself, do you know what? If there's two of us that are dragging each other down, there needs to be one strong one in the relationship. And I got out of there as quickly as I could because I was panicking. But it just shows that you're a case study that works. Do you know what I mean? Where you can actually both do it together.
And the fact that from that day when my wife eventually started feeling better, like we've been stronger since, because I've been able to say to her, oh, look, I'm having a down day, instead of I'm just going to be a bloke and get the ump, if that makes sense. So, no, definitely open up, talk as much as you can. And I'm a massive advocate of that, which is amazing. But look, you eventually left Reading and signed for Crawley. How was that leaving the club and that you left were there for so long?
Yeah, it was weird. Very, very strange. I was there till I was 23. Only ever played 5 games, but I played like 130, 140 games out on loan. So that's where I got my experience. Signed for Crawley under Steve Evans. Fantastic manager.
Right, let's go
There's
back.
A theme here.
We spoke to Revs. I come across Steve Evans. I said this to my dad. I come across Steve Evans when I was about 7 or 8. He used to manage a team against my dad, and they would have full-on fist fights against each other. One thing going on. David Noble can't stick him, but it gets results.
Mate, how long have we got?
Honestly, it's madness, wasn't it?
Right, so I'll start at the beginning. I was playing for Aldershot, and we beat Crawley 2-1 in the cup. I walked out the stadium at Aldershot, and he was driving past in his Range Rover, and he wound the window down. He said, "Oi, you little prick!" And I said, "What?" I said, "What?" I said, "Like, what's that for?" And he said, "You're better than that shit." And I thought, all right, I didn't really know how to take it. So it was 1 prick and 1, you're better than that. My old man being my old man was about 10 yards away, and I didn't realise. Next thing, Steve Evans got out of the car to come round to me, because I've called him a prick back. He's walking around the car. My old man's got to me before Steve Evans has. So next thing, my old man's got him by the throat up against his Range Rover. And then like 2 years later, my phone goes in the summer. "Hello, Scott, Steve Evans, Crawley Town, I want to sing you." And I'm like, "What are you doing ringing me?" Like, I could not believe it. So I remember jumping in my car and I went down to Crawley to meet him, and I sat in the office. And he said to me, "Listen, it's all done with now. If your old man wants to come in and speak to me and we can apologise, then feel free to bring him in." And I'm like, "Listen, I don't think he's that bothered. It's fine." So I'm sat there with my agent. They just had some investment from Hong Kong and just gone up to League 2. So I thought to myself, like, this should be good, like financially and that. So I sat down and they said 1,200 quid a week year 1, 1,400 quid a week year 2, and I was absolutely buzzing. I was over the moon because I thought that's not bad. So my agent said to me, right, put your poker face on. I'm thinking, I've got the worst poker face ever. I get my pants pulled down every time I play poker. So we went outside for 5 minutes. My agent went back in there and negotiated a new contract, and they were just throwing money around. So it went up from like 1,200 to 1,500, and then 1,400 to 2 grand with a 30 grand sign-on fee. So straight away I thought, oh, this is unbelievable. Like I'm a millionaire again. So I put the 30 grand in a savings account. We went away on a pre-season tour to Portugal, and I played the second half of the first game out there against the Premier League team in Portugal. So we played FC Hollandaise or something they're called, and they were popping it around. It was beautiful sunshine. They'd sprinkled the pitch and everything. And I went on for the second half, and I'm trying to get the ball off the keeper, which was Scott Shearer. So next thing I get, Scott, fuck off. We don't play like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm like, okay, gaffer. So I run up the pitch. I've taken a corner. I've pinged it in. It's got cleared. They've broke from the corner. A player's had a shot. It's come to their striker and he's tapped it in. And apparently I should have got back. I should have got back in, right? So they countered quicker than you've ever seen. So after the game, we're sat on the floor. The whole team, apart from the ones that played first half, they're down the end of the pitch, about to leave like the complex. So he's screaming and shouting in my face, and he goes over to a lad called Hopak Pan, comes back to me, and there's spit going in my eye, and I'm thinking, not now, Steve. Like, so I've wiped my eye, and I've got up, and I went, fuck this, and walked off. So he's gone, Scott, where you going? Where you going? So I'm like, I'm going down the end of the pitch. I said, I'm going back to my room. He said, no, you're not. No, you're not. I said, listen, I am. I said, watch me. So I walked down the end of the pitch, and the other team that played in the first half, they were going, Scott, you've got to go back. And I was like, nah, fuck that. So I went down for dinner that night. And I was queuing up, like you do at school dinners, you know, you get the little tray with the plate. So I'm going around and I'm getting my bits and pieces and stuff. And he's gone, Scott, fuck off. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So I get a knock on my door about half an hour later, and it's the assistant manager, Paul Rayner.
Paul Rayner,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, so he stood there and he's gone, right, he said, I've spoken to the gaffer. He said, you need to bring your agent and book yourself a flight home. So I was thinking, we've only been here a couple of days. We've got another week. So I rang my agent about half an hour later and I said, listen, Gaz, I said, I've got to book a flight home. I had an argument with the manager. I told me I'm never playing for the club again. So I was just like, oh, fuck's sake. So he said, just stay there. He said, just go to training in the morning. He said, just get on with it. He said, it'll soon be forgotten of. So I get my training kit on in the morning. I go up to the complex, which is about a 15-minute walk away. I get the gate shut in my face as I get there. He said, get back to your room. He said, you're not training with us, you're not playing with us, and you're not socialising with us. So I actually sat in my room for the next 6 days on Danny Bullman's laptop, just gambling. And I gambled 10 grand that week, which was 10 grand of like some of the money I'd saved up for a deposit. And then when I got back to England, off the back of that, I didn't train with the boys for a couple of months. And I ended up gambling that 30 grand away in the next 15 days because of what happened in Portugal. My head was all over the place. I didn't think I was going to play ever again. I felt lost. I was angry about the situation. So yeah, off the back of an argument with the manager, I ended up doing my absolute nuts. So that's just one story, but there's hundreds, mate, about him. It's just, I saw him the other week at Gillingham, and I walked in and I'm like, as that mark of respect, you still call him Gaffer, don't you?
Yeah.
So I see you call Nunny Gaffer on Twitter and stuff. So yeah. So I walked in, I was like, hi, Gaffer. He's like, Scott, fucking how are you? So I'm sat down, I'm sat in his office, and he's got his iron brew and his chocolate fingers, and I'm sat there and I'm thinking to myself, like, how times have changed. Like, everyone just grows up, don't they?
Yeah.
But we were talking and we were reminiscing. But he's an absolute character. But I play for him again tomorrow. Like, he's one of
Noble's the same. Like, he played for him everywhere, but he drives me mad. But listen, the guy gets results and he's good at what he does. And it's funny, like you say, you played for him again. You had a handful of games there, though, didn't you? Did you get back in there?
Yeah. We played Southend on the. I ended up like missing like the whole of pre-season, like games and stuff. And then he put me into the team, and then we had another fallout where he left me out. He made me travel to Morecambe. We lost 6-0, and I was in the stand. You know, one of those ones where we're going to bring you up there.
Yeah.
So I remember getting on the bus after the game, and the boys were getting changed, and there was a big box of fish and chips that got delivered. So I'm walking on, and he sat on the front of the bus. I said, Gaffer, what do you want me to do with the fish and chips? He said, no one's having them. So I was like, okay, cool. So I put him in the back of the bus. Next thing, like Scotty Nielsen, you'd have come across him at some point, wouldn't you? He starts chowing away at one of the fish and chips. About an hour into the journey, Steve Evans has gone, right, you can have your fish and chips now. And there's 25 fish and chips for 25 people. So there's only 24 left. He's had his last. So all he's got is a paper tray with some paper. So he basically said, listen, boys, if I don't find my fish and chips, because there's enough for everyone on here, he said, you're in the morning at 6 o'clock on a Sunday.
Oh,
So I'm thinking, oh, fuck, so we're all going, Scotty, go and tell him the truth, mate, that you've had 2 lots of fish and chips. He's like, nah, no, he's going, nah, no chance, mate. Nah, no chance. So, yeah, in the end, we were in at 6 o'clock in the morning. We had to touch his door in the office and just drive home. So he got us in, touch the manager's door and drive home. So that's just silly little things. But do you know what he did? He instilled like this fear in you, where if you didn't work hard, you didn't know what your job was, you were just never going to play. And he got us singing off the same hymn sheet. We obviously had decent players as well because we had financial backing at the time, where we did go out and buy the best sort of League Two players. And we got promoted, I think, the last day of the season at Accrington, but he actually left before the end of the season to join Rotherham. But yeah, it was class, mate. It was good. But it's just a team of absolute workhorses. So that's probably what got us through it. Just hard work.
Yeah. So what? You get a decent move, to be fair, to Oxford United, mate. But did you played over 30 games for him as well? But did the gambling just get on top? And is that where it come to a head with the gambling? Or
no, Crawley was the worst one, mate. So like at Crawley, I was sleeping in my car after training and all sorts. So I was gambling more than I could afford and couldn't afford to get home, because if I had 20 quid to put in my car to get home and sleep in my bed that night, or £20 to put in a roulette machine in Crawley and chance it, I was putting 20 quid in a roulette machine, my last 20, and hoping that I'd win a few hundred to be able to go and stay in a hotel that night. But however much money I won or lost in the evening, it just didn't matter. So I was going to do it all regardless. So I ended up like sleeping in my car. I started betting on my own matches at half time. All sorts of things. I crashed my car on the way home from training because I was gambling, watching horse racing and roulette on my phone, and there was a kid sat in the car seat in the back. So it was just the absolute turmoil. I remember sort of Googling while I was at Crawley, like ways to stop myself from gambling. And I just did not know where to turn to. Like I was thinking, well, how do you do it? Like, this is impossible. So I remember going to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting when I was at Crawley. I drove to Watford because I didn't want it to be my like local one. So I grew up in Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire, and I thought I'll drive like 40 minutes away. And I sat in this meeting, and the first gambling addict to speak told me that he was stealing from work. And I was like, you're crazy, mate. Like, what are you doing? And then the second one done a street robbery to take someone's Rolex. And I'm thinking, right, you're nuts and all. I'm thinking, what am I doing in a room with all these mad people? Because I was still in denial and I was judgmental. So at Crawley, it was awful, absolutely awful. But it was a long way as well. I was travelling sort of 2 hours to get there in the morning, 2 hours back. So you're spending sort of 20, 25 hours a week in the car. But when we did get promoted, it was great. And then I went in next season ready to sort of hit the ground running, because I think I played the last 14 games of the season when we got promoted. Sean O'Driscoll came in for 2 weeks, and he was class, really, really good. But he went into Nottingham Forest. And then we had a guy, Richie Barker. Richie Barker came in, and he basically said to me, listen, I've spoke to the chief exec. The chief exec spoke to your agent. You're never going to play for the club again. So I was just like, I was thinking, what do you mean? Like, I was thinking, like, what's going on here? What happened was, and you won't believe this, I didn't realise at the time, I was stood in the reception area talking to the receptionist, and she was a nice girl and stuff, so we used to just have a crack and a bit of banter. One day, the chief exec walked into the office, and he went like, Scott, get out of here. What have I told you about walking through the reception? So I'm like, calm down, mate. Like, what's wrong with you? So the following day, like, I'm in there again. He said, get out. What have I told you? So I went to walk out the front of the door. But he said, no, you don't go out that way. You get out the players' entrance. So I'm like, all right, calm down. Within a week, I got a phone call from my agent saying, you're not going to play for the club again. And I was just like, I can't work out why. I didn't think the chief exec had that much power, or he had a problem with me. I thought it was just me being a bit sloppy being in the reception. So when I did leave at Christmas that year, I got a pay up, hadn't played a game. I got a phone call from the receptionist, and she said to me, she said, you do realise what's happened here? And I said, like, what? She went, he's been like sending me letters. He's been sat outside my house. He's been doing this, that and the other. And you've obviously been caught in there a couple of times. That's the reason why you're not at the club anymore. And I was just like, what? I was like, are you joking me? She was like, no. She said, like, I've had to basically like leave my job and that now, blah, 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 blah. And I just thought to myself, that is football to a T. Like, someone up the top, a businessman, has such an impact on affects my career so much when I was flying at the time. It just shows, doesn't it? So next thing, I'm at the club and I'm on my way I went to Portsmouth for a day. And they told me they wanted to play in some Joey's match in about 3 weeks' time, but I didn't have 3 weeks to wait. It's 3 weeks to wait. Went to Stevenage, went to sign there, and that day John Ashton ruptured his Achilles, so they signed Ben Chorley instead. which was fine there to sign a centre half. And then I got a call from Chris Wilder at Oxford, and he just said to me, "Listen, I've been trying to sign you now for a few years. Tried to buy you last summer. Want to sign you?" He said, "But I've got no money for you." He said, "I've got 200 quid a game." He said, "It's up to you whether you want to sign it." And me being a gambling addict at the time, £200 a game was just nothing. I was getting £1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Wasn't even paying for the car that I had on finance. So it's just like you say. I signed there till the end of the season, and I absolutely loved it under him. He was really, really good. Not the world's best manager by any stretch of the imagination, but just a people's person, a good person. And man management was second to none. Like, everyone respected him. He had a laugh with you at the right times. But yeah, he was good, mate. And then I signed a year in the summer. So my last year of professional football was just an absolute pantomime. Like, I was just nowhere near the level. Yeah. Just doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, eating 3 or 4 takeaways a week just to basically get a cheap meal because I couldn't be bothered to cook because of my gambling. Didn't have money to sort of go and I didn't have time to go and make nice food. But yeah, no, I wasn't in a good place then. I remember going to the doctors, and I was sort of like got diagnosed with depression. Yeah. But it's just not something you talk about. And as a footballer, I didn't want the club to know that I'd been to the doctor, so I never got any tablets and things like that. So yeah, mate, the last year was just an absolute blur. Hardly remember it, to be honest. If someone said to me, "What was your time like at Oxford?" or if you asked a fan what I was like at Oxford, they'd probably say, "I don't really remember him." Like, I was out there on the pitch, but I wasn't out there. Can't remember myself really having a 7 out of 10 game. Always a 6, 6.5. So yeah, it's just crazy, to be honest.
When did it all come to a head then with the gambling? Because obviously you then drop into non-league. That must have been a culture shock as well.
Yeah, Christ. So I went away that summer, and when I got back, I thought, right, who's going to ring me? And Cheltenham and Northampton rang, and both of the managers or players at the club there had spoken and said, like, Scotty Davies, what's he like? And a couple of lads said he's got a bit of a problem with gambling. So word had got out that I liked the bet, and no one would touch me with the proverbial barge pole. Yeah. So I sat in Nando's one day, and you know him as well as I do. It pops up with a number on my phone, and I'm thinking, like, who's this? So I picked it up, and he said, "Hello, it's Tony Fontenelle from Dunstable Town Football Club." And I'm thinking, what the fuck is Dunstable doing ringing me? Like, what, have they got the wrong number? So I'm thinking, like, what's going on here? So he said, "Listen, we're playing Hemel Hempstead tonight, and do you want to come and play?" So I was just like, "Well, I've just had a Nando's, mate." I said, "Kickoff's in about an hour and 45 minutes, but give me half an hour. I'll go and get my boots and I'll come along." So I played that night and played well. And he said to me after, he said, "Listen, we've got 450 quid a week in an envelope that we can give you. We want to sign you." And I thought, thank fuck for that. Yeah, I signed for them. And you know what? Like, when you look at that team, I still think it's the best Southern Premier League starting 11 I've ever seen.
Oh, it was an absolute joke.
Yeah, so
it was you and
me, Gregory, and Adam Watkins. Yeah,
joke, mate. It was so good.
And he got like Charlie Emery, Terry Dixon, Shane Blackett. We had a starting 11 that were all had played in the Football League.
Yeah, it's unreal.
I'd never seen that in the Southern Prem. Like, you've obviously got some great teams, like now and these days and stuff. But back then, I didn't know the Southern Prem as well as I do now.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know anyone that we were playing against. Then I looked at our team, even players like Eni Effiong. Yeah. So Eni came along after the season, couldn't trap a bag of shit. And now he's like fucking scoring 15, 20 years a season in the conference, national, wasn't he? Yeah. So yeah, we had good players. Like, Eni come in and he was powerful and strong. Who else do you have? Like, even good young lads, good young players like Jamal McKenzie. A lot of ability. Yeah. But that sort of few months, we were. Yellow won't mind me saying this either, because you probably listen to it because it's me and you involved. But he couldn't get a word in edgeways in the changing room. So he's doing his team talk, and we've got players like Ben Hurd as well, and Charlie Emery going, "Hang on a minute, hang on," and then they finish the team talk. So I'm thinking, what is going on here? Like, no, this ain't right. And then you've got Crofty and Revo, 2 other blokes. I think one was a builder and one was a carpenter. And they're telling, like, players that have played, I don't know, a couple hundred games in League One, like, how to fucking shift across the pitch, how to go and press. Like, it was just unbelievable. But I look back at it and you can see I'm smiling the whole time talking about it now. Won the first 7 out of 8, I think. Then the money dried up. I didn't get paid for 6 weeks. Still haven't been paid those 6 weeks. So if they're listening, just chuck it round.
I think Odie's been waiting for his go as well.
Yeah, I got 6 weeks. So what's that? About 2,500 quid or something on me. So if they've got it, yeah, I'll give them the bank details. If you could put it at the bottom of the screen or something for them, that'd be class. Yeah, so I ended up. Wealdstone had a game called off, and we had a game for Dunstable, and Gordon Bartlett came down to watch. And he said, listen, he said, I didn't come down to watch you intentionally. He said, I thought I'd just come and watch a local game. And he just said, listen, what's the situation? And he said, you're far too good for this league. Do you want to come and sign for Wealdstone? And I went and signed there, like immediately, because I wasn't on a contract and things like that. It was just cash in hand, and they would give me extra money behind like back pocket and stuff, just to basically, if we won a couple of games, they'd be like, yeah, mate, don't tell the rest of the boys. So I'm like, okay, sweet, not a problem. So I went and signed for Wealdstone. Started off and I absolutely loved it. Like, started well, and in the end, there was a big rift between me and the fans. I think I was Marmite in terms of what I was doing and how I was playing. And with me, I similar to Matty Ball the other day, where you were saying he'll always try the extraordinary.
Always been yeah.
And I can't not do it. I just think to myself, everyone can pass 5 yards, right? Most of the people, and I like to be a bit different. I like to try and catch the eye. I've always done it since I was a kid. And then I'd shoot from the halfway line. Sometimes I'd go over the bar and the fans would boo and they'd groan. And I'd think, listen, have a day off. Like, just give me another chance and I'll have another go. But yeah, it was good. It was a good club to be at. But I found with Wealdstone that they almost felt like they had a God-given right to win every game. Yeah. Like, in their minds as fans and as a club. And there's some good teams in the Conference South. So we struggled in the first. Yeah, we struggled towards the end of the first year. Broke my foot and ended up going to rehab that summer.
Right.
So that's when the gambling come to fruition. Mum caught me in the bookies during that summer on June the 8th. And I remember looking around at the door, saw my mum, floods of tears, crying her eyes out. And she just said to me, listen, you need to stop gambling. You're going to end up dead, or you're going to break up mine and your dad's marriage, because it was putting a financial strain on their marriage. Yeah. So that night I went home. I was literally laid in the dark for the next 24 hours, and I started twisting a knife around on my chest, like scratching myself with a knife. And I knew from that moment I had an issue. I knew it wasn't right to do what I did. I kind of cut myself, and I got scared for the first time in my life, if I'm brutally honest. And for me to feel that way, from being the happy-go-lucky, loudest person in every changing room, it wasn't normal to feel that way. So I knew it was an issue. I went to my parents and I told them, and they just said to me, thank fuck you finally admitted it. That was their words. Yeah. And I had to just give in to my addiction in the end, because playing for Dunstable, I wasn't working Monday to Friday. I was just playing football. I was a professional footballer for Dunstable. So yeah, I was a professional footballer for Dunstable. I didn't have that on my Twitter, but I should have had. So Monday to Friday, I was free to do what I wanted. And all day, every day, were the longest days in the world when you've got too much time to think as a gambling addict. And I absolutely hated just being around myself. So I ended up going to rehab on July the 6th. I went in there and I remember crying the whole way there, thinking, what am I doing driving to rehab? Like, this just isn't normal. Mm-hmm. I thought rehab was for like Amy Winehouse and Pete Doherty. I didn't think it was for me. And I got there and I met 3 other lads that looked absolutely wounded, absolutely broken from alcohol and drugs and gambling. And I looked at us and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to listen to everything they say. I'm going to tell them the truth. And I kind of rebuilt this exterior that I had, and I felt it was going to be unbreakable. So it'll be 5 years in June this year that I haven't had a bet. But God bless them, the other 3 that were in there with me are all back on it, and alcohol, drugs and gambling and whatnot. But I'll be honest with you, I saw it as a last resort, because my mum and dad said to me when I was in there, they came in on the 21st day. I hadn't seen them for 3 weeks. You have no contact with the outside world. They sat opposite me and said, listen, from today, if you don't stop gambling, we're going to disown you. It's as simple as that. And when you hear that from people that, like, listen, you love more than anyone, I just thought, do you know what, I need to buck my ideas up. And I did from that day. And all the urges that I got in the early days of gambling, I just remembered that moment when my dad said it to me. Yeah. And it just resonated. And I just thought to myself, I can't go back to being Scott that I wanted to be. So yeah, it was a wake up call, but it was probably the best thing I've ever done, to be honest, going to rehab.
How do you survive now, day to day? Is it you never get that urge? Don't ever feel like you go past the bookies you need to shoot in there? No, not at all. I don't even think about it. It's just something that's not part of my life now. So if someone said to me, listen, if you're a smoker and you have one more cigarette, you're going to die, you just wouldn't do it. You'd do everything you could to not do it. And I see it like that.
Because even though it's not a physical substance in terms of you can see it in someone, it was ruining me in terms of my mental health. And I'm a massive believer about getting people talking. I want people getting talking, but I think in the last sort of 10 years, especially even 5 years, mental health's been banded around the room a lot, and people I don't think understand what real mental health is. Like some people say, oh, I've got depression, or I've got this, I've got that. I think it's too easily spoken about at times, where people just say they diagnose themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know what your guys' views on it, or your views on it are, but it's a dangerous situation to be in if you think that you've got depression. You haven't, because I didn't believe at first when I was struggling, when I was low, that I had an issue, and then all of a sudden it started to creep in, and I thought, fucking hell, like, have I? I'm not sure. And I didn't really want to have it because I was ashamed of getting it. I thought I was going to be some kind of like judged as some kind of weirdo.
Yeah.
And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. And like, yeah, it's just one of those things I couldn't control. But urges and stuff now, yeah, it's
no, I think you're right, mate. I mean, Jay are pretty on the same wavelength as me, and it's very easy for people to say I'm depressed. But I mean, I can only go from my experiences. I've had some struggles. I've said to you about my OCD. I can't stand it when people say I've got OCD. That has to be straight. Like, my OCD ain't about cleaning. I can get thoughts in my head for days upon days. It takes over my life. I mean, when I said to you, when I was a kid, I used to do it as in, you know, if I see a trolley out of place in Sainsbury's, it was 3 miles down the road from where I lived, I'd walk down there and put the trolley straight. Otherwise, something's going to happen in the house. People don't know that. You know, it used to take me, before every night I would go to bed, I'd walk up and down the stairs 29 times. Up and down was one.
Fucking hell.
I haven't got a clue. And then as I think I really struggled when I finished playing, because a lot of my, you know, I struggle now with this virus going around. I've drove my missus mental, because I get something in my head and the OCD takes over. And it's like, if you don't do this, this will happen. And people don't know that. I mean, I went to meetings. I went to central London into a meeting. And it's like, hello, my name's Lee and I got OCD, and you sit around with a group of people. Amazing people. People were travelling up from all over the country for these meetings. And did it help? Yeah, I think it did. Do I have days? And what I've begun to accept now, and I can have some real bad days, but I always just try and tell myself that it does get better. You will come out of it. You won't be in it forever. And if you've got good people around you that support and help you and talk you through it, then I think you know, I've always said I'm open to what I've got. I'm not ashamed of it. It is part of me, and that's the way I've been brought up, and it is what it is. Everyone's
It's crazy. It's crazy you say that, right? My mate goes to the cash point, and every cash point he's got OCD, like similar on your level. So I've got it in a way that I'm just a bit of I hate having mud on my hands and my trainers and stuff like that, which is not OCD. It's just being picky. Yeah. But my mate, every time he goes to the cash point to withdraw money, he puts his pin in and he has to touch his nose on the screen. And then he has to touch his nose on the screen. And when he indicates left, he has to indicate then right, then left, then right to even it out. And then he has to touch his nose on the steering wheel. So I'm in the car with him and he's headbutting the steering wheel. And I'm thinking, what are you doing?
Honestly, I mean, I have to do the switches in the house. I have to check everything. And, you know, that's just the checking side of it. What people don't understand is when you get it mentally as well. And I mean, it's like the biggest urge to do something. Like you get in bed and you think, I ain't turning that off downstairs. If I don't go downstairs, that's it. We're done. Like there's something happened to us. And it just plays a massive part, an affection. I say you can have thoughts that just take over your mind for days upon days, and you think I'll go to sleep, wake up in the morning, be fine. It ain't fine. It's just as bad, and it takes time, and you have to manage it and deal with it. And I think I deal with it quite well now. And as I say, I have bad days, I have good days. I'm quite. It's one of them things, you know. I'm quite enjoying the lockdown. To be fair, it's quite nice. I miss a bit of football, but you know, it just is what it is, and you have to deal with it, and the best way too. But listen, mate, you absolutely amazing what you know you've said there, and not to be betting for near on 5 years is amazing. And you're doing some good stuff now, mate, with the EFL. What's that all like? And that's talking to players and.
Mate, it's the best job I could ever wish for, other than being a professional footballer. So obviously, I got to go around every single professional EFL club, Championship down to League Two, once a season for 5 years. So 72 a year. Go in there, I tell my story for 45 minutes. If anyone's struggling, they come to me for help after. And we've had a large number of players, to be honest. I can't go through facts and figures because it's something we've not released. But a lot of players where I've walked in and I've seen players absolutely dripping in Gucci tracksuits with a big gold Rolex, the best trainers you've ever seen. And after the session, they'll say, listen, can I talk to you? I'm struggling. And I'm like, you look a picture of health and wealth. So how are you struggling? Because you judge them from your perception, what you can see. So yeah, it's crazy, mate. It's a lot of traveling, but absolutely love it because you can still have the banter with the boys and things like that when you see your old teammates, old managers. But even stats today, there was an article released by the PFA. Mental health stats and the figures have gone up drastically since the beginning of coronavirus. So it just shows that, listen, it's something that's ingrained in normality in our society now. It's not something that's just going to go away overnight. And the more people that speak out about it, the better, because obviously it becomes the norm, doesn't it, to just offload your feelings and your thoughts and things like that.
Yeah, of course, mate.
Definitely. And what do you do now that you never did as a youngster? What advice would you give yourself if you look back over the last few years?
Do you know what? For me, if I had to, I would like to think that I would rely more on my attitude for sure, in terms of doing the extras, doing the hard graft, and giving everything 100%. I think I was one of those people that if we had to do a weight session or circuit in training, I'd go and sit in the toilet and read the Sun newspaper for 20 minutes out of the 40. So that's the kind of person I was. I remember sort of like Martin Cool at Aldershot, leaning over the top of the toilet saying, get out there, fucking go and do the circuit. Because I'd be sat there reading the Sun newspaper, Dear Deirdre, seeing what's going on. Because that's just what I did. I just didn't enjoy. You know, like doing the bits you didn't enjoy most in football is probably what's going to make you the complete player.
Yeah.
So that would be it for me, for sure.
Yeah, I remember like I was the same. Like it's funny because I bet you put so much time and effort now into your job, and it's funny how your career goes, isn't it? I was so lazy as a player; it was ridiculous. Like you, I'd never lifted a weight in my life till I was 28. I thought, shit, everyone's looking great. I've got the worst body in the world. Like I need to start lifting some weights here.
The best thing is when my missus says to me, like, "How are you in such good shape? Someone that eats so much shit." And I'm thinking, you should see the other boys.
Oh, it's a nightmare, mate. No.
Sorry, mate. What were you saying about the weights? 28.
No, I was saying I didn't lift the weight till I was 28. I was I had the worst body you've ever seen. It was like an ironing board.
Mate.
But I was so lazy. I just didn't have it in me. But now I work so hard now at the managing side. I absolutely love it. And you know, funny. And you probably do the same now. You're probably so professional with the way you work. If you go back to then, done it as a footballer, you'd probably be earning thousands of pounds. But your life plan, mate, and it is what it is.
Do you know what? One of the best things that's ever happened to me is meeting my missus. Like, so I met her 2.5 years ago, and I wish I'd met her when I was 21. Yeah, so I honestly think that if I'd have had someone alongside me, sort of keeping an eye on me, basically keeping me in check and not taking the piss out of everything that I do, because for myself, but me being in charge of me was just a recipe for disaster. So. Now, listen, we went for a walk this morning and I'm saying, right, let's go along here and we'll walk by the golf course. And she's going, no, we're going this way. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's go that way then. So do you know what I mean? So it's just the little things, didn't it? Do you know what I mean? Just like keeping you in shape, like keeping you in check. So yeah, that would have been helpful as well.
Yeah, of course, mate.
Well, look, we like to end up our podcast with a quick fire round. They don't normally end up being quick fire. Are you up for that, Scott?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Come on, Lee, fire away.
Best player you played with and against?
I'd have to say Gylfi Sigurdsson. It's unbelievable. Like, he came out of nowhere. I started the season and then I got bombed out the team. He came in and I tried to get him back out, but I didn't have a chance. So I think he came in, scored 18 in 34. But yeah, just incredible. Like, even watching him now, love watching him play. It just makes football look easy. Best player I've played against, in terms of like when I was younger, Mark Noble, for sure. And then in the older days, Deco was unbelievable when we played Chelsea. He was just a step ahead of everyone else. He's playing 1-2s around me and I was on the waltzer. So yeah.
Best goal you've ever scored? God, dear, he's got a few.
Oh, I know, I've seen this. What's going on?
He's got a few M25 balls as well. To be fair.
How much memory you got on this memory stick? It's gone a while, this one.
How many you scored from the halfway line?
6 now. So, yeah, 6 and halfway line. Do you know what? My best goal I've ever scored was probably Torquay away for Crawley. Rio Ferdinand tweeted me after the game. It was like a left foot volley that came to me and I flicked it up and volleyed it on a half volley. And he tweeted me after the game saying, "Goal of the day's got to go to Scotty Davies. Keep you up, bang." And I was like, "Rio, can you retweet this, mate? I want to get a few more followers." So, so that was an unbelievable goal. It's on YouTube. It's a good one, very good one. But my most special goal, scored a free kick against Czech. But my first goal on the first day of the season for Aldershot against Kidderminster, we had kick-off and it came back to me and I just dribbled through them all and shot. But no one's got it on video. So, yeah, gutted.
You've scored a few, mate, to be fair.
Yeah.
You've scored a few. Best manager you played for and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. Like in terms of name, you'd go for Brendan. Like Brendan's coaching sessions, for sure, were different class. But in terms of the longevity of my career and stuff, I'd have to say Gary Waddock.
Yeah.
So when I was 19, 20, he took me on loan for 2 years. And that obviously gave me the platform to go on and like perform. And he just said to me, "Listen, go out there, enjoy yourself, express yourself, and make mistakes." And you don't often hear that these days. But for me,
one of them players as well, Scotty, isn't you? To be fair, you're like Bally. Like if you have to have two around you or another one around you, that's going to be that simple player to allow you to go and make them mistakes and try something.
Yeah.
To win.
I think I've changed. Yeah, I've changed it now. You obviously said that you saw Bally in more of a 4 position, and I haven't played in behind the striker now for 2 or 3 years. And now I'd rather get on the ball and get things moving. But I think I've had to adapt my game over the last few seasons because I suppose you're getting on a bit. I'm 32 now. But yeah, no, he just said to me, "Go and make mistakes, go and express yourself." And that was just like a breath of fresh air to play for someone like him.
Yeah, of course.
I've changed this next question, Lee. If you knew someone was in a similar position to how you've been in the past with your gambling, what advice would you give them?
Go and speak to someone. I live by saying a problem shared is a problem halved. My mum came up with that one, which I've nicked off her now. I absolutely love it. I think it's so true. I try to deal with all my problems myself. And when you're bogged down with how you're feeling about yourself, with the problems on top of that, you're never going to be able to recover and get better. So reach out to someone, go and speak to someone about it, because that sense or the overwhelming feeling of relief is what you'll get. And it's probably not the reaction you will expect. I remember telling my parents that I was completely fucked and I needed help. And rather than them having a go at me, it was like, right, listen, let's get this sorted. So yeah, it's a sign of, we always say it's a sign of strength, not weakness. Do you know what I mean? In terms of reaching out. So just go and do it to anyone, even if it's me. If someone's struggling with gambling, I'm on social media and things like that. Just drop a message in my inbox. I get them every single day of the week. So more than happy to help.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I don't know which way you could go with this one because you're a little bit similar to both, but Messi or Ronaldo?
Oh, mate, no, it's got to be Messi for me.
Yeah,
I knew he was going to say that.
Do you know what it is? I love Messi as a player, but then I watched the Ronaldo thing with Piers Morgan. Yeah. And it just made me love him. Like, I watched it again the other night, and I just love his character and stuff. But listen, either or, mate, we'll take them both on me.
Exactly, mate. But I don't know if you can fit them both in the side with you, though, can we?
Nah, mate. It's not enough legs, have we?
No, mate. No, listen, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure and a real good insight, like you say, to what was a good career, mate, and maybe a few little different paths. It might have been different, but what you're doing now and changing lives, you've got more of a purpose than just playing football, mate. And it's been a pleasure, and I thank you for coming on, mate. Really do.
No, thanks for having me on, guys, and I wish you all the best for the podcast in the future.
Cheers, mate. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you, Scott.
Take care.
Cheers.
Scott.
Take care. Bye.
Very impressive, Jay.
Oh, that was superb, wasn't it? I was looking for his Wikipedia this morning, and I was thinking, he's just a journeyman. What's the story? I don't get it, but oh my God, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a great lad. I'd say I've come across him a few times, Scotty. I've always got on. Do you know what? He's always had time for people as well, and I like that about him. And it's a really interesting story. I knew there was a story in there, and I know what he's gone through, and just an all-round great lad. And I'm so pleased that what he's doing now and how he's changed, and fair play to him.
I've got a question for you as a manager. How do you deal with someone like that in a change room? He's obviously, like you said, he was all about the banter. Yeah, do you want that?
No, I've got a few, mate, to be fair. I mean, Tommy Brewer, my captain, he's a very close family friend as well, but he's a nightmare. Like, he picks me up, like, he spins me round, and he thought he's there, and next thing I know, I'm spinning round. And I've got Percy, Kian Benny, PK, he's mad. He makes everyone Sam Corcoran. But I've always got a rule that the minute we go to work, whether that's at 1:45, 2:00, when we go out for the warm-up at 10 past, we're on it. If we ain't on it, you ain't playing. And if you ain't up with that, you're leaving the football club. I'm very big on that. You have to be big on that because, like I say, Scotty said there, I think as well, Jay, you can have too many big characters. You got to be really careful. You don't want too many because if you get too many opinions start to come out. So it's just about finding that blend of players. And as I say, listen, Scotty's a player I've always admired, good player, but great lad as well. And I bet he's a good laugh in the change rooms, to be fair to him.
I bet he's an absolute scream. But no, it was a real pleasure to listen to his story on it, and unbelievable what he went through, to be fair.
Yeah, no. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed another episode. Thank you.
Cheers.